So the menus that we'll be using primarily are going to be under the curve menu here. We also may be generating some surfaces, and then later on, we'll be doing a bunch with the meshes. Now the mesh toolbar it's really handy in that it's fairly easy to manipulate the meshes in Rhino. And you can also, on these tabs, you have a number of options available. When I'm working on the meshes, I tend to use the mesh toolbar here a lot rather than the menus. When I'm working for curves and surfaces, I usually go back to the menus here, or often I'll just start typing. And Rhino supports IntelliText. So when you start typing a command, it starts to pare down the options. So quite often you only have to type the first few letters of a command. Like if you want to cut a section in a surface, once you've got SEC, it's narrowed down to just section and you can hit return. It'll prompt you for what it needs if it hasn't already been pre-selected. And I can grab a couple of surfaces here. And you can either hit enter to complete the command, or if you hit the right-hand mouse button, that also operates like enter. And then you would simply pick a location and drag your cursor down. And since I have orthogonal turned on, I'll get a nice square cut across the hull, and you'll see the section was created. Now, because I had the surfaces on as my current layer indicated by the checkbox on the Layers tab, those new items were created on the surfaces layer. I could have, and I probably should have, created a new layer with the new layer button, and I can rename this to, oh, because I'm in the middle of a command, that's why it's not letting me rename this. So I'll rename it afterwards. But now that that's created, you can switch over to the properties, and these are the properties for the selected item. And I'm just going to right click to finish that command. And so those two items that were just created, those section cuts, are still highlighted. They were created on the surfaces layer, and they're colored by layer here. Now I created a new layer called layer 1, so I'm going to move those over to layer 1. And now I'm going to, if I just click in there again, now I can rename layer 1, and I'll call it reference. And then if you want to reorganize these layers, you can move them up and down to reorganize them, or you can put them underneath another layer. And this button here creates a sublayer under the existing layer. So you can organize your model however you like. I tend to have a layer with surfaces, which has all of my original surfaces for the hull that I brought in. A lot of times what I will do is I'll make copies of the original surface that I can split up deck by deck. So I keep my original surfaces on surface, and I might make another layer underneath it. Either I'll put those temporary surfaces on the reference geometry tab, or if I want to keep them around, I will make a separate surface layer for main deck, second deck, third deck, and so forth, going down to like the inner bottom. And those will contain all of the surfaces that I'm going to work on. I'll create another major layer, and this one might go under, essentially my original surfaces, and then a breakout layer or deck by deck underneath it. Then I might make another major layer for my meshes, and it would have a similar substructure under it for second deck, third deck, and so forth. But it's really up to you how you want to organize your model in here. But Rhino does support, all the layers and everything, and you can very easily move things between them and reorganize this. I also have a hierarchy in there, usually from my reference drawings, those AutoCAD drawings that I bring in. And I tend to bring in the deck drawings, and then I'll set them in 3D space for where they actually go in the model. And when you go to move something, such as a drawing that you imported, one thing that is really handy to use is the set point command. So if you type in setpt, it basically allows you to take everything that is currently selected and specify an X, Y, and Z location for it. And I almost always leave it as aligned to the world, so you can set the X, Y, and Z in world coordinates. And if you have something that's slightly out of plane and you want to snap it to the correct location, or if you imported a frame drawing or a water type bulkhead drawing or whatever, and you want to locate it at a specific location in the ship, I'll simply uncheck Y and Z. If you leave all of these checked, it's going to collapse your entire drawing down to a single point. But I can say reset all of the X values for everything on there to, and we'll move these to frame 80. Just have to say OK, and then give it the value snapped to the bulkhead at X equals 80. So 20, 40, 60, 80.